Okay, Mark Anderson here, construction worker turned zero DTE hedge fund manager. Today, we're going to continue teaching Connor how to trade options over the course of the next few weeks. Basically, one important thing that I think will give Connor a unique advantage here is just psychology, being that he's not really emotionally invested in it and he can just be invested in the practice. I've also done a lot of Tony Robbins events and volunteering and coaching and stuff alongside them as well. So I kind of wanted to bring that into Connor's mental game. And one of the main concepts that they speak about in regard to that is basically everything you've ever seen, heard, done, or acted out is basically stored in your mind. The problem is just recall. And the example I would give of that is like, Connor, like, do you remember what happened on 9/11 or the day the world shut down on COVID, or like when your daughter was born? Like, do you remember what you had for breakfast? Do you remember, how you felt? If you could kind of talk about that, you kind of jiving with it.
Yeah. Like we were just talking previously, you were talking about like what I had for breakfast for my daughter born. I remembered like I woke up at 3 a.m. and you just, like you said, you have those emotional ties right to the stage. You know exactly what you're doing exactly at that time because there's emotion draw to it.
Yeah, exactly. And like, you probably don't remember what you had for breakfast on June 8th of 2007, right?
No.
Yeah. So that's kind of the example of it, or when people will like have their life flash before their eyes. So what we like to do is we like to use that for kind of like a learning hack as well. So another example is like, you remember 10% of what you read, you remember 20% of what you read and hear, you remember 40% of what you teach, and then you remember 90% of what's like you have emotions tied to and you basically act out. And that would kind of be like the example of emotions tied to your daughter being born or 9/11 or something along those lines. The other example too with like Steph Curry is mastery. He's physically enacting that out. So basically, Steph Curry has made about 3,800 threes in the NBA. And over the course of that period, he's basically been taking 1,000 threes a day for like 25 years. So he has to take, 20,000 threes for every one he makes on the court. And that's why he looks so good when he's doing that. But the main thing with that is like he's emotionally and physically acting it out. And he also has clarity of what that is. So to kind of save Connor time, I've basically drawn what that goalpost is. So the clarity of what we're trying to do is we're going to be systematic traders, which means we just follow the rules every day. We're going to be pure quant, which means we're just based on the numbers and back test. We're going to have a high time velocity of money, meaning creating a lot of occurrences and flipping that money over because we have a small account and need to make money on it. We're also going to beat up the back test that we're basing this off of to have very conservative assumptions. And then our main goal is just get what we bought. If the back test ends up failing or doesn't work or the edge goes away, that's actually completely fine. What we want is not necessarily the result on the scoreboard, but the fact that we went to the game and ran the plays. You down with that, Connor? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm down with that. I think that definitely is going to help me out. We were going through that yesterday, and just to point out kind of like what Mark's saying is when we were entering in from back test into trade steward, it made me realize like how diligent and how point by point I have to be, because I kind of, when you assume things, that's where things can go wrong. And that's where you can lose a bunch of money. I learned that yesterday. So I think this helps you remember what your purpose is for the day, and having a clear goal is going to help you stay focused during that.
Yep. And then also with starting with this, we've basically like the way to do this is like the more we master the basics, when we get to the portfolio and it gets confusing, you'll at least kind of know where you are. So the way to look at it is like you have unconscious incompetence, effectively where Connor in, he doesn't know what he doesn't know at all, if it's right or wrong. Then you have conscious incompetence where you're aware that you're screwing up. So basically if you're on a treasure map, that helps a lot. Then you have conscious competence where if you think about what you're doing, you can figure it out, which is great. And then mastery is unconscious competence, which you don't have to think about how good you are. And basically how we're going to do this is every time before we read, every time before Connor records his trade log, he's basically going to do what's called an incantation. And you basically just say out a mission statement with words that relate emotions to it. And then when you say this out loud multiple times and you have some greed of wanting to trade bigger, or you want to run a back test before you've done all the work, that's a thought in your mind of basically like the devil on your shoulder and the angel on your shoulder. And by having read this out to yourself, it's going to be a lot easier not to negotiate and justify that in your head because you physically said it out loud. And the hardest person to lie to is yourself. I wrote this for Connor basically, and what it is we gave him a name, Quant Connor. So it's I, Quant Connor, see, hear, feel, and know that I will create an abundance of wealth through the short-dated index options market. I've cultivated an unwavering conviction to meet the standard of execution and compliance to my trading plan, regardless of how I feel or what life throws at me. I'm a data-driven and know that success is not the P&L on a day-to-day basis. The real success is executing per plan day-to-day with a 95% accuracy to the back-tested plan. Small daily losses are a valuable driver of making money on a monthly basis. I perform to the best of my ability each day and achieve my mission of making $2,000 a week, doubling my account from 50 grand to 100 grand over the course of the next 6 months through data, simplicity, and execution. I now command my subconscious mind to guide me to serve and contribute at an ever-expanding level, showing others the roadmap to financial freedom through my short-dated index options portfolio. I've put in the work to be exactly where I need to be today to deliver. Now step into the moment 6 months from now, being the person you have become, changing an account from 50 grand to 100 grand, and be proud of that person that you've become more, give more, and able to do more. So pretty cool, but contextually, I don't know how you feel about it. You can kind of talk about it. I would just recommend reading that out loud once or twice a day, or when your emotional states gets low or you feel that. And that's basically just some social proof to deposit in your bank account to continue to follow the plan.
Yeah, I love it. I feel like just like what you were saying, Mark, every time you remind yourself your purpose, your clarity, and have a clear goal, I think it's always going to help you be better at what you're doing and staying focused on what you're doing instead of just having that lackadaisical mindset of just getting in. I got to work. I got to do this. I got to do all that. You remind yourself why you're here and what you're doing it, and it's going to have a better result for sure.
Yep. And then when we get in a low emotional state, we often get tired and then won't work like we did. So this is basically just something to ground that too. I do this myself, and I think we'll keep on doing this basically every Friday to add stuff. Next week, we'll talk about a checklist a little bit. So if you guys like it, feel free to comment or something particular you would like to see if this is of value to you. But appreciate it, and we will talk to you guys next time.